Hello Year 4. Today we are looking at art. Before we begin, I just want to say a massive well done to everybody who has started on their river backgrounds. They all look amazing. Here are a few that were completed in school last week from some of your classmates. Amazing work, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to build on this by experimenting with different materials for printing. So we will need to think about where you may have seen printing before. Have you ever made a printing block or something similar, and can you create one to add to your river collage? First, let's look at some different artists and their printing techniques. Here we have an artist called Katsushika Hokusai, and he has used a technique called colour woodcut, which is where he's taken the wood cuttings and painted over them. Here's an artist called Albrecht Dürer. He's used a different type of printing technique called engraving, which is where you dig into the material that you are using. This is the artwork for Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, and he has used a different technique again called woodcut technique, where he has cut into the wood and then used that as a print onto his material. Our final artist today is Jim Dine, who has again used a different technique called impressed printing. That's where he's taken a material and just pushed it against what he's going to use. Here are some of the materials we can use for our printing. So if you have them, corrugated card, bubble wrap, toothbrushes, sponges and string are what I will be using today. We're going to experiment with these materials, deciding which you will be using on your river collage. So because we're experimenting, we are also going to need a fresh piece of paper and ink or paint if you have those available. Remember, we're looking at the effects these prints create to add to our river collage. Record which prints you think you will use and what the effect is going to be on your river collage. How are you going to make this look like our river? So, here comes the fun part, the messy part. First thing I've done is just prepared my surface by putting down some paper, because I'm sure your parents won't be too happy if there's paint smeared over everywhere. Next thing I've done is I found a very, very old shirt, and I'm just going to put that on as well to keep me protected from being too messy at work, so that people don't ask too many questions as to why I'm covered in paint. What I've got here is a blank piece of paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on using these different materials and seeing how I can make them work for a river scene. So what I've got here is I've got an old toothbrush. Best to use an old one, not a new one, because you don't want funny coloured teeth, and paint doesn't taste very nice. I've also got a sponge here, which I think will be really amazing for effects of a river. I've got some bubble wrap, which I'm going to use to try and create some bubbles, hopefully. I've also got some string here, and some corrugated card. So corrugated card is just a bit thicker than regular cardboard, and as you can see, there's loads of little bumps in it, which I'm really hoping I can use to make waves. I've also managed to find some pipe cleaners, which might come in handy, because they're a slightly different texture, and this crinkly bottle, which I think would have really amazing effects for water. So, my plan for today is to experiment with these and different colours. So I've got brown, green, blue, white and black. Here they are. Hope you can see them okay. I've also got a paintbrush in case I want to mix any colours and see if I can get a really good effect for water. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this sponge. I'm going to just dab it a little, because I don't want the whole sponge covered in brown in case I want to use other parts. I'm just going to give this a go. So on a sponge, I can smear. Smear is a technique where you just take the material and you wipe it. So what I've got now is a really murky, muddy looking thing here. So I really like that. It's kind of like a paintbrush. So I think that's going to be amazing for that kind of background. So definitely going to keep that one in mind. Next, I'm going to try a toothbrush. So I'm going to just dip it in some blue, I'm going to give it a little wipe around because I don't want straight lines. I want some nice little wavy effects here. So I've got here, especially with little stops and starts, these little wave patterns here. So this is what I've done with my toothbrush so far, which is amazing. Next, I'm going to use some of my corrugated card. I'm going to dip that in some green. I'd like to make some type of weeds that we might find in water. So I'm just going to take my card. Mine's a bit bendy here. I'm just going to do very similar like I'm doing with a toothbrush. So not quite straight lines, just seeing what I can do. And then just take a little bit of paint and just see how we can make some weed-like effect, or maybe even more water effects if you'd like to use it for some blue. Now with this string, I found an amazing technique where if you don't put the whole piece of string in, you just use a little bit, like this. So I'm holding on to the tip here, and you hold it down here. You can either drag it along, or you can do this winding motion, which I really like. And what you do here is you just smear it over the page, like that. And I've got this kind of slightly different water effect here from the toothbrush, which I really like. Next, I'm going to use some bubble wrap. I haven't got a great deal of colour at the moment, but I would really like to try and add some and layer it over the top. So I'm really going to push down because my bubble wrap isn't the greatest. However, with the right stuff, you can get these little bubble-like patterns. So I've used a little too much there. Make sure you really dab it in. I'd also like to create some sort of pebble. So I'm going to take a little bit of black. I'm going to smear it here. A little bit of white. I'm going to mix them together to make a nice greyish colour, which I'm hoping will look like pebbles at the bottom of the riverbank. So for that, if you're lucky enough to have pebbles in your garden, you could always try that. I'm going to use a lid. And just to experiment here, just push down and twist. So now what I've got are potentially some pebbles here, the greyish colour. Finally, I'm going to take my bottle with those little wrinkles and I'm going to just dab it in some black. I'm going to see what I can do here. I'm going to try here and just wipe it off. So I don't need to keep going back for more. Wipe it round here. And what I've got here are little streaks all around. Lovely. So today, I hope you've managed to experiment with some of your colours. And now you need to think about what ones are you going to use for your river collage that you started last week. So I'm definitely thinking of mixing some colour and making some pebbles of a grey using a bottle lid. The toothbrush is a really nice swirly effect, and the string is really nice. I might use different shades of blue for that. I like the corrugated card here for our weeds. I'm definitely going to use the sponge again to try and get some brown smeared all over and dab it in. And further, if you use the sponge, which I'm really fond of if you couldn't tell, you can make slightly more greyish colours here, kind of like pebbles that are really far away or really small. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I look forward to seeing what you've added to your river collages for next week. Have fun, take care, and we'll speak soon. Bye, Year 4.